If you think about all the things that you care about, they're all managed by software today. Your money, your health, your government, your elections, your health, like pandemic response, like you name it, it's managed by software. And that software is ridiculously insecure. I spent 12 years doing manual code review, manual pen testing, side by side with developers, finding vulnerabilities, looking at code. And, it's the number of vulnerabilities is really staggering.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Leumitech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, OWASP Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with CTech. Today's episode is with the real cybersecurity star. Meet Jeff Williams. Jeff brings more than 20 years of security leadership experience as co-founder and chief technology officer of Contrast. Previously, Jeff was co-founder and CEO of Aspect Security, a successful and innovative application security consulting company acquired by Ernst Young. Jeff is also a founder and major contributor to OWASP, where he served as global chairman for 8 years and created the OWASP Top 10, OWASP Enterprise Security API, OWASP Application Security Verified Standard, XSS Prevention Cheat Sheet, and many other widely adopted free and open projects. Jeff has a Bachelor's of Arts from the University of Virginia and a Master's from George Mason and a JD from Georgetown. There's a lot of cybersecurity startups out there, but over the last more than 7 years, you've positioned Contrast Security as a leading cybersecurity company. If we're looking at pretty much across the software development life cycle, looking at how do we secure code and what's happening with the world today, I'm very much of the belief that we haven't really seen the importance of cybersecurity yet. I think if you're in the industry, you understand it and you see the dangers and what's happening, but to most people in the world, it's still a little bit of science fiction and still a little bit out there, which is going to happen one day. And so I'm very thankful for companies like yourself, which are coming and helping keeping us secure. And I'd love to start there, Jeff.
Yeah.
Entrance to cybersecurity. You've been in this domain for more than 20 years, right? How do you explain that? Why cybersecurity for you?
That's a good question. I kind of got into it by accident. In the 80s, I played around with computers all the time. And so I got, back in those days, they used to copy protect software. And I like cracking those copy protection schemes. They're like crossword puzzles to me. I don't know. It was fun to see what they tried to do to stop you from using the software a certain way. And so I got into cracking those. And then I don't know, just stayed with software. And my first job was at a classified Navy project where I learned about real security. They were building a B2 level system in the Orange Book, very highly secure. And I just decided I was going to learn everything I could about computer security, which back in those days was almost possible. Like you could learn almost the whole field. Today, it's massive. So it's changed a lot.
But still deciding to dedicate your career to the security side of things, you can go building great applications, great consumer products, look at all these different verticals, and you're looking at securing our software even today. What is going through your mind as you're rationalizing through this decision to continue in this domain and in this path?
I just think it's such a huge critical problem. If you think about all the things that you care about, they're all managed by software today. Your money, your health, your government, your elections, your health, like pandemic response, like you name it, it's managed by software. And that software is ridiculously insecure. I spent, 12 years doing manual code review, manual pen testing, side by side with developers, finding vulnerabilities, looking at code. And, it's the number of vulnerabilities is really staggering. It's funny because people get outraged when a new vulnerability comes out. And, just today, there's a new serious vulnerability in Spring. They're calling it Spring for Shell. It's going to be a big deal. But people get all outraged when we find one vulnerability in a company like, Equifax or whatever. But every company has those kinds of vulnerabilities, dozens of them in every application. So, it's not that we couldn't build secure software if we decided to, it's just that we don't, and that irritates me. So I've kind of dedicated my life to trying to fix that in the market. Sometimes I feel a little bit like Ralph Nader.
I love it. Take me back 7-8 years, the inception of Contrast Security. You're an entrepreneur and you're identifying that there is a gap in the market for another leading cybersecurity company that is going to help us secure code across the software development lifecycle. What is your positioning back then as an entrepreneur and continuing in the cyberspace, but now creating a new company there?
Well, we saw a lot of changes in software around that time. We did a lot of work with very large enterprises with thousands of applications, sometimes tens of thousands of applications, and securing application security achieving application security at that scale is really difficult. And the tools that the legacy kinds of tools in AppSec, static analysis, dynamic analysis, and WAFs, were all designed for, the early 2000s. That's when those products were invented. That's when they came out. And software changed a lot. It became more agile. It became more API driven, lots more libraries and frameworks. It moved to the cloud. Right. And DevOps, the speed of software delivery changed a lot. And so we just looked at it and we said, hey, you know what? We need a new, different kind of tool for a modern kind of software. And so we created a different way of doing application security from the inside out. So, our product works more like a profiler or an APM tool, like a New Relic or an AppDynamics, but for security, not for performance.
Right. And so as you're building this company and as you're growing it, there's a lot of different questions that come into play. One of them that is very, very interesting for me is the go-to-market in cybersecurity space. And you're looking to create a solution that is going to serve different enterprises around the world. Did you have to think of it very intentionally from the beginning? Was it sort of, engineering-led, cyber-led, or more go-to-market-led for you in the beginning?
Well, I'd say it's more engineering-led because we invented Contrast inside my consulting company, and then we spun it out as a separate company. But because of where we came from, we had great relationships with lots of large enterprises. And so the go-to-market was pretty obvious for us. We were going to sell to the people we know. And that's actually probably a good first step for almost any entrepreneur. But we got a lot of guidance in the first few years on, how to make the product, how to get great product market fit, and so on.
Right. Okay. So Contrast Security, if we're looking today at the cyberspace, what I'd love to is, go 30,000 feet in the air, understand sort of the landscape of what's happening today in cybersecurity, and then where does Contrast fit into this really complicated maze? Yeah.
So I like to think about the cybersecurity market according to a framework. Like if you think about either the NIST framework, or I like actually Sunil Yu's cybersecurity matrix, but basically you can think about kind of the phase of security from, early on it's thinking about detection and requirements and defenses, and later on it's about detecting incidents and response. And so companies kind of array themselves across that landscape. And then on the vertical dimension, there's, I kind of think about the software stack, right? There's at the bottom, there's host and network security, then there's containers and cloud, and then at the top, there's application security. There's also people security and mobile and a few things like that. But if you think about it that way, then Contrast is on the application security layer. That's what we do. And we cover a pretty broad range across sort of the software lifecycle and into production. So that's kind of our goal, is to be a platform to support almost whatever you want to do in the application security space.
Right. And obviously you do have to go after specific challenges, right? Even within that domain. So you have to start somewhere. What was sort of the strategy as you were mapping out the different offerings that you had for Contrast Security? Because you can't start by saying we're going to offer solution for the entire lifecycle.
Right. The first thing that we built was called Contrast Assess. And it's this new way of identifying vulnerabilities from inside the running application. as opposed to like scanning it from the outside where you don't have much context. Doing it from inside, you have all the context you need. So you have access to the code, the data flow, the HTTP traffic, the backend connections, the libraries, the config. All of that context lets it be much more accurate. And ultimately, accuracy is the key here to scale. Because if you're not accurate, you have to have security experts in the critical path. And so by being super accurate, we can empower developers to do it themselves. And that's really when you get DevSecOps moving. That's the big machinery that you need in order to scale AppSec. So that's where we started, and then we expanded from there.
But that's not trivial, getting access to the internals of the company, to understanding how everything is integrating, and to have visibility into all these different moving pieces. What are the trade-offs as you're balancing your ability to integrate into those areas versus your wanting to be able to read everything and to make some decisions on your own?
Well, just to be clear, we started, with a technology that would give us that full access to their running applications. So like it started
right
technically. And then once we have great data about vulnerabilities and exactly where they are, what line of code, what HTTP details and all that, then there are a lot of integrations because a lot of people need that data. It's not just getting it back to the developer fast, although that really helps, but management needs that data. The security teams need that data. Operations teams can use that data. There's a lot of places, you're right, a lot of places where we had to integrate. And that's, been an ongoing process as we build out our touch points with all the tools that people are already using.
But getting access to the internals of the company. I mean, you're coming in, you're saying, okay, we're a new company, Contra Security. We've built this great product. We're getting visibility. We're going to be able to extract some insights. We're going to become better and better over the years. And by the way, in 7 years, we'll become sort of a market leader in this space. But back then, why do they let you in? Why are they opening the door for you? This is their company.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, some companies won't do business with small startups because they want something that's more stable. But a lot of companies are willing to, investigate new approaches. They want to do things that are new and faster and better. And, they'll take a flyer on a small company. And we had a really good reputation coming out of my consulting company. We were established in the space. It's not like we were just a couple of guys who'd never done any AppSec before. Arshan and I had been doing this for over a decade and had really strong relationships with the community. We'd released a bunch of open source tools in the past through OWASP. So, things that were really popular, millions and millions of downloads a year. And, so we had that reputation going into it, which
the
really
reputation
helps.
So trust is an important factor here, right? And I'm guessing it's not just trust in the company, because here you're saying, well, actually, the fact that we as the co-founders had this reputation, we are at this point, we are the company, the two of us, and we have the credibility.
Yeah, that's right. That's what investors invest in A round and early angel rounds. They invest in people. It's not the idea. It's the people.
Right. Okay. And so it didn't sound like this was a significant barrier. Was there a turning point when you realized that, okay, it's no longer just about me, Jeff, and my partners, but our company actually has the credibility and has the stance to be able to go and sell into companies that may not know me, Jeff?
Well, it takes some work. I mean, that's why it takes 4 or 5 years to get a cybersecurity company going, is because you have to make some early sales. You have to get provide great value and measure it, and then be able to get references that will talk about you. And, you can't just go from 0 to $100 million in ARR in like a year. You've really got to, prove your value and get your name out there. And, it just takes some time.
Right. So if we're looking today at cybersecurity in 2022, and like I mentioned before, I think we're just starting. I mean, I think that we're going to be experiencing some really interesting things in the next few years, and there's going to be a lot of more opportunities in the space. Where do you think is sort of the holy grail today in terms of cybersecurity? What is really the most pressing thing that I, as a young entrepreneur, should be thinking about when it comes to the world of securing the cloud or securing software or hardware?
Yeah, I think so. I have said many times that I think application security is in the Stone Age, and I think there's still a lot of great opportunities in AppSec. For the most part, companies have been kind of doing the minimum in AppSec. Almost every company has a program, but they're not really, they're not really reducing their mean time to remediate down. They're not, they're not reducing the number of vulnerabilities they introduce. They're just kind of, working it off. What I would say is the big opportunity is I think we're on the cusp of a transformation in the market where application security becomes visible and transparent to consumers. There's a lot of push from the government, like through the new cybersecurity executive order, the implementing regulations under NIST. So there's things like you'll have to produce an SBOM to tell people what libraries your application is using. That's a software bill of materials. You're going to have to publish that about your software. I think you're going to have to also publish more details about how you build that software. Like, are you doing security testing? Did you train your developers? Why should I trust your software? I'd be willing to bet that you bank online, right?
Interesting.
Right. Well, what do you know about the software that you're using to manage your finances? Yeah, that's
Very
crazy.
little.
Right. You're blindly trusting that software, and we blindly trust all the software in our lives. That's crazy. So the market is broken. If you can't choose.
But Jeff, I have a question. I mean, that's why we have brand, right? I mean, that's why Chase and Bank of America, that's why they're working so hard at building this brand of a secure brick wall that they're working so hard. My question is, when you're talking about the shift to consumer transparency and individual decision making, do you really think consumers will ever want to read the software bill of materials and be able to have these independent thoughts on who's secure and who's not? Or is it mainly going to be a marketing play for who can position themselves on Google as the most secure bank?
Yeah. So a lot of people's initial reaction about things like software labels, and they think, oh, well, consumers aren't going to read this. Well, guess what? Nobody read food labels for like 20 years, but they dramatically changed the food market because the effect early on in these labeling regimes is on producers. Like their lawyers won't let them produce a product that has, 100% toxic chemicals in it because they know they'll get sued. And the same thing will happen with software. Is the effect will be on the producers first to live up to the labels. They won't bring a product to market that has an F on it. Just like you don't see restaurants in New York City that have an F on the window, right? Well, occasionally you do. They get closed down. Like you only go to restaurants that have A's and B's, right? It's the same kind of thing here.
Right. Yeah. Fascinating. And so, if we're looking now specifically at this idea, and I think that's fascinating, this transparency, what shift do companies need to make now?
Yeah.
If I'm looking at the average entrepreneur, what kind of thinking or strategizing should we be doing now if we want to align ourselves or position ourselves at the forefront of this new movement?
Well, many companies are already doing a lot of the right things. Many companies are training developers, they're testing their code, they're putting automated security automation into their pipelines, and they are generating
purchasing software like contract security.
Exactly. So I think what they need to do is get themselves comfortable with the idea of disclosing that information, first internally, and later when they're confident, making it externally available. I do think it will be a market advantage for the first companies that are brave enough to publish this kind of information. I think that it will be really well received. And I think it'll create competition in the market, and there'll be a race to be, the most secure software producers. And the companies that do that well will win their sectors, because being great at software is the key to unlocking your entire sector. It doesn't matter what you're in. It doesn't matter if you're healthcare or finance or airlines or whatever. It's being great at software is the key.
100%. Jeff, this was a fascinating conversation. I think I can go on with you for another hour or two, but you have a company that you need to continue running. And so I really want to thank you for your time and your energy and thoughtfulness, and I appreciate it. And thank you very, very much. Stay safe and stay healthy, and best of luck with Contra Security.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it.